hand over to, I'm about to hand over to Courtney.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Caitlin. And first of all, welcome, Alexandria. It's lovely to have you. And welcome to all of the students who are here online. This is the first of the masterclass series for the GSB MBA students. And this is really a series that's been developed off of our interests as students. You know, who do we want to hear from? So all of the guest speakers that we will be bringing on board will share some of their unique insights, you know, that we will learn from their working experiences. So that's just a fantastic opportunity for us all. As you know, Alexandria Procter is our first speaker in this series, and she will be chatting to us tonight about everything from Digs Connect platform to her recent venture, a VC fund, as well as some lessons that she's learned from her recently published book. So after Alexandria has her talk with us, we will have some time for Q&A afterwards. So please, you know, you're welcome to put them in the chat, or you're welcome to just hang on to them, and then we'll have that session afterwards. But before I hand over to Alexandria, I just quickly would like to do a bit of a bio for anyone who didn't happen to read through Renel's email. So Alexandria is a visionary entrepreneur who really exemplifies the power of innovation and determination. She's the founder and driving force behind Digs Connect, a groundbreaking platform that revolutionized the student housing market. And since its inception in 2018, Digs Connect has facilitated connections between over 150,000 landlords and tenants across over 400 cities worldwide. And in her recently published book, Upstart, Alexandria talks about her experience and shares advice about startups and new technology. Her commitment to leveraging technology and entrepreneurship for economic development led her appointment to the board of directors for the National Youth Development Agency by the President of South Africa in 2021. Additionally, Alexandria's dedication to community development is evident through initiatives such as Libraries for Entrepreneurship, where she provided digital entrepreneurship courses in public libraries, and in a recent venture, Pharos Ventures, a VC fund focusing on health tech. Beyond the boardroom, Alexandria's adventurous spirit has taken her on remarkable journeys such as summiting Kilimanjaro and trekking across Everest Base Camp. Personally, very, very jealous about that last one. And now, Alexandria, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the MBA cohorts. We're all very excited to have this opportunity to hear from you. And yeah, over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. First, I just want to check, is my connection good? Is my sound coming through, video coming through all right, or is it a bit jumpy?
No.
Okay. Okay, great. I did, at the beginning, I just bought some extra data on my phone, so I can hotspot if it gets a bit shady. Sometimes it just like, it gets a bit temperamental, like me, so it's a bad combination.
I'll let you know if anything happens, but don't worry.
Okay, super.
All good for now.
Super. Thank you so much for the introduction. Oh my gosh, I feel like, you know, like in WWE, when they have like the announcer and the guys like run out and they're like, oh no, we have. Like everywhere I go, like, even like lunch, like dates, I'm gonna ask you just like do this introduction as I walk in. Thank you. I love that. I love the conversation before. I thought it was really interesting about the gratitude journaling and then identification of different things. And I think the Ulrich, you mentioned that the speaking, not listening, I'm very much in the same boat as that. So it's a really interesting insight to have there. It sounds like a great exercise. All right, so it looks like I'm the first substitute teacher of the course, which is really exciting. Unfortunately, I can't assign homework. I was very much hoping I could do an assignment, but can't do any of that. What I want to do is just kind of say, like, just something like rules of engagement as we go. Please interrupt me as I go. Pop your hand up, ask questions. Once I start talking, I don't stop, even though I think it was great that we did highlight at the begining listening rather than just talking, because I need to learn that. So hopefully I can listen more. So please pop your hands up as we go. Oh, is that hands already coming? That's very exciting. Please pop your hands up as we go if you've got any questions. And let's have a different conversation. It's just like, you know, me kind of talking at you, because I think that sounds a bit like boring hearing my voice the whole time, and I talk very fast. So stop, have a conversation. And because I like the idea of being more conversation than talk, I hope you have a glass of wine or a glass of beer on hand to enjoy it. It definitely makes me sound more intelligent the more drinks you have. So I want to just encourage drinking at this point. It is 6 p.m, right? And yeah, that's about all the the starting points. So for the session today, what I was thinking of doing for the masterclass is I had a bunch of ideas for things to talk about that will add value. But then when I started looking into the cohort of the class, realizing just the range of experience and just how incredibly qualified everyone really is, I kind of jumped through a lot of ideas that will make the most sense and add the most value for this class. I thought instead of just telling the usual story about how I started my company and the journey of it, I mean, I wrote a book about that. So for more details, that's kind of out there. What will be more informative and valuable for the class is to actually dive into kind of more takeaways. So I was thinking of doing three things I did right in my journey so far building a startup, and three things I did wrong. I have the benefit of hindsight after doing this for 6 years, and the rearview mirror is always clearer than the windshield. And looking back and kind of see quite clearly what I did right and what I did wrong. So hopefully there can be lessons in that. And yeah, or at least maybe something to laugh about. They're gonna be like, how could someone do that? That's so dumb. But at least lessons in that. That being said, I remember when I started up my startup journey, I had the most incredible mentors and support. The startup community in South Africa and even globally is so incredible and so supportive, and everyone gave the best advice. And of course, I thought that I was some sort of like genius, and so I disregarded all the advice, did all the mistakes and told me not to do, and then realized later why people said don't do those things. But I feel like it's one that's to learn the lesson. You have to kind of get your fingers burnt a bit to realize, okay, I shouldn't have done that. Or you have to also have that feeling of success and things go really well, because that's kind of how it sinks in. All right, so I did say three things of each, but I also can't count very well. So I might do more or less of each one. Luckily, I don't do the finances of the company. I'm going to have bigger problems. I'm probably going to list more things I did right than wrong. So, but I'm sure we'll just talk as we go along. And like I said, if there's anything that pops up as I'm going that you'd love to know more about, I know Wayne was saying that there's a big interest in venture capital, for example, in the group. I can definitely talk more about that. Being on the side of having gone through a couple of funding rounds, and there's just so much complexity. The space is always evolving. It's so fascinating how people are just, access to resources, which is exciting. All right, so let's start with things I did right. I'm gonna read out the headings of each one, just so you kind of know where we're going. And if you have any questions that pop your mind now, that come up later, just write those down. So the three things I think I did right, I'll talk about. One is having amazing co-founders. 2 is just starting, and 3 is making hard decisions fast. The 3 things I did wrong is, I'm not gonna lie, I did struggle with this. I was like, I'm a startup god. No, I'm joking. There were many things I did. Yeah, 2 things I did wrong. 1 is lack of focus, and that was really bad. 2 is a near delusional state of optimism, and there's a lot more than you did into. And 3 is not being more inclusive of other people's ideas. If there's more things you want me to talk about, you can just let me know. But I'll start with these so long. All right, so I'm going to start with things I did right and start with the co-founder, because this is probably the most, what's the big state? I'll probably say it's the most important decision you will make as a founder of a company. It's just like probably in your personal life, the most important decision you'll probably make is who you marry. The most important decision you make when you start a business is who your co-founder is. We are very much the average of the people we spend the most time with. We can't help but be influenced by everything that we receive, if it's social media, if it's the news, if it's our environment. And if you spend a lot of time with some people, they are going to completely like shape your perception of yourself, of your business, of reality, everything is possible, what you're going to build, what you're not going to build, like 100%. Like you need to be surrounded by people that inspire you, that push you, that you respect, that respect you, that you are just like bowled over. It is so critical. The wrong co-founder and co-founder dynamic will destroy a business, and the right ones will take it to them. It's the same with music. I mean, imagine the Beatles, if like one of them had been missing, it wouldn't have happened. Any great musical band, imagine the right kind of like writing partners, like teams create magic. And especially the co-founder relationship, because you're going to go through your highs and your lows. And just having the right person is insane. It's insanely good. And it's not an easy journey. Like I think a question I got a lot is, how do you find the right co-founder? And so I speak a lot about my co-founder, Greg, who is one of the most exceptional human beings like on the planet. He's like, I always say he's the kind of person that gets like once a century someone like him is born. Anyone says, how do I find that? How do I find a co-founder like that? And I think the best advice I can give here is advice that I stole from Charlie Munger, who is, if there's anyone's advice to steal, it's Charlie Munger's advice, where he says, if you want to find a good spouse, you got to be a good spouse. And I think the same thing applies with being a co-founder. If you want to be a good co-founder, if you want to find a good co-founder, be a good co-founder. And you kind of attract rather than chase them. So you think, what kind of co-founder would you want to look for? And then be that co-founder. Like if you're, everyone in this class is obviously highly talented. And so you got lots of options. You can go out there and have great paying jobs. You can have like comfortable lives. Now, if someone approached you and they say, look, I've got this crazy idea, but I've got, what's going to convince you to join them? If they say, I've got no money, I've got no product, we got no backers, we got no market, I've done zero work, you're going to like, and I don't know, like they just kind of come across as a lazy person. You'd be like, get lost. I'm not going to go with that. If someone approaches you and they're like, look, I've already started work speaking to customers. I've already put together an MVP. It's kind of shitty, but like it's testing it. I've already started chatting to potential investors. No one's cutting checks yet, but I've got some warm leads. I've got some introductions. I've already started looking at scouting different, partners to work with. And critically, especially if you're not a technical co-founder, if you really start upskilling yourself on technicalities, if you have a technical based product, that again is you have to do the work. Again, like if that person came to you and said, I've done all this already, I've done this groundwork, I'm going, this rocket ship is like, we're shooting to the moon. And are you on or are you being left behind? That's a compelling offer. So I think it's like just getting started is critical here. Like you have to just like start being the person that will attract other people. Because when I first got the idea for Disconnect, I'd approached a bunch of people to work with me, but this is just me talking aloud. I was like, oh, I'm going to build this thing, I'm going to build this thing. And I approached obviously like very talented people that I knew from university or work and being like, and try to lure them away to join my startup. And they're like, what have you done? And I was like, it's not what I've done, it's what we're going to do together. And they're like, no, get lost. Like, why would I give up like this comfort that I have and the security for you? Like, who are you even? And you don't take a person, you're just like, fair enough. So you actually get started. And like once I'd gotten started and actually doing things, I built a basic website. I started doing like, some of like the groundwork of getting up and running, the cold call stuff. That's when people start paying interest, paying attention to what I was doing. That's when people start reaching out to me on LinkedIn or on Instagram or anything really. And that's when you start getting attention. So that's how you kind of start being a co-founder. And the other thing also on the technical co-founder thing is that a lot of if you have a tech-based product, a lot of questions always like, how do you find a technical co-founder? And they're in such high demand. And if you look at what software developers, I don't know if this, I was doing an MBA class, I don't know if there's any technical from technical background here who doesn't want to start a business, but like it is really, really hard recruiting technical co-founders, because you look at someone who's not only going to be exceptional in engineering, but also has that like leadership business element to it. And for someone like that, they're going to be having like incredible offers from like the biggest tech companies in the world with very compelling salaries, really nice work-life balances. And you got to make sure you can compete with that. And if you can't, then what I say to people is you have to become your own technical founder then. And that also I think is really compelling then for other people who want to join you, because you have to just do the work. So like when I struggle to find a technical co-founder, you go online, you find those resources, you just start teaching yourself what you need to know to get to the next level. You have to like kind of do the grunt work. It just shows again your dedication, your commitment. Because if you want to start bringing other like founders in, the big thing is like, are you going to just give up after 2 months because it's kind of hard, or are you in it now, and you are like, you start doing the graft and you start upscaling yourself. So when it comes to technical co-founders, you kind of become your own technical co-founder. And yeah, with the co-founder things, you definitely want to have also a complementary skill set. I think that's also like really critical, is that like often I think we can highly rate the things that we value in ourselves and look for it in other people. But like that's often disastrous. Like you want people that kind of complement their skill set. You don't want like people that do the exact same thing. Maybe it is cool if you guys are like, I don't know of very many co-founder duos that I know personally that are the same. They're all kind of very different and they've been quite successful like that. And I think about Greg and I, for example, like Greg is extremely organized, extremely structured, like meticulous with his life. You could sort of set your watch by what he does. Whereas I kind of exist in this like a nebula of chaos, which I think I hope is valuable. I don't know, but it definitely seemed to work really well with Greg's structure. And I'm really good at kind of doing like the external work. I was really good at doing sales and getting the business out there, and yeah, being more of like the getting things started, you know, having that spark. And Greg is like phenomenal, absolute savant at like structuring that into something that actually is coherent and works. So it kind of worked really, really well. But that can kind of be wherever, you know, your skill sets, your deficits are, being very aware of that, and then finding people that kind of complement that. So that's my first thing I did right, was having a great co-founder. Next is just start. And I kind of touched this earlier, the whole thing of like before you find a co-founder, is that like the conditions are never going to be right. Like obviously you want to play into your unfair advantage. Like if there's something you're really good at, or an opportunity comes up, or you know something that other people don't know, or you have a bit of like a bit of an edge. And for me, this was my role when I was at university. I got elected onto student government, and my role was student housing portfolio chair. So I had also I was a student myself, that was like living in off campus housing. So I was building for myself, which helped a lot already. I knew my target market because it was me and my friends. Also, I had this extra advantage of seeing more from a very high level, the structural issues around student housing in South Africa. So that helped a lot too. So it's kind of like my unfair advantage. But I think definitely went right. You know, I was still studying. I was unsure. I didn't know I was going to found a company. I was still a student back then, you know. Definitely didn't have any money, you know, to get started with this. I was like, you know, scrimping 50 rand here and there as like an undergrad student. I had a bit of, I did computer science before, but I had some technical skill, but not enough to build like a comprehensive website. So you can always find things that like, you know, make the conditions right or wrong. Timing cannot be right. Maybe your personal life is saying not going right, but I think that you have to kind of just start. Like right now, I feel like it's good enough right now. I'm equipped right now. I have everything I need right now to get it going. And if it takes a really long time and you keep screwing up, I think you have to build the plane while you're flying it, because often you don't know what the plane looks like until you're actually in it. You know, you can have an idea for what your business or start will look like, but then when you're actually doing it, like doing the thing, and you speak to customers, you're like, oh shit, I thought it was this thing, but actually I've been speaking to all these users and they want this thing. You know, I thought this business model would work. Obviously, everyone paid for this, but actually people are like, well, we're not paying for that. Are you that, but we pay for this instead. So we're actually doing it. You learn in real time. If you're sitting back writing down this whole big like vision board of like, this is like Alexandria Procter's great vision for like business, I'm the next, you know, I'm the next like Mark Zuckerberg, but you're not actually speaking to like real users who would pay you for that. Like it's like a fantasy, it's a fiction book. You know, as much as I love fiction, you know, you can't that's not a business then, you know, then it's a fiction book. So I think just starting and building, like doing it as you build and like planning it as you build is so critical. And I'm so glad that I did that. That was definitely the right thing I did. Speaking your idea into existence, also part of this whole thing of just starting. As soon as you start telling everyone you're working on this thing, some people are like, oh, they're going to steal my idea. Like, I doubt everyone's going to steal your idea, because like ideas, often people say like, oh, these great business ideas, and you probably heard like 1,000 times before. I mean, student housing is like the most obvious thing ever. And it was like, oh, I had the same idea. They would always be like, cool, what did you do? You know, show me your 6 years of work. Show me the websites you built. Show me the funding you did. Show me like the slog you did of calling thousands of landlords getting to list. That's what counts as execution. But if you speak your idea into existence, you kind of broaden the surface area of serendipity then. And you never know who could hear that. Could be a potential funder, could be a partner, could be a co-founder, it could be clients. Also, just by talking about it, often you're thinking aloud and you start putting together the pieces. Like for example, this talk now, like I've been thinking for like a few days what you said, I had no idea. And I was having a chat with someone like earlier, and they're like, and just by talking about it, I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to structure it. So by speaking into existence, you make it more real. So that's something that was just start, just get started. And no one's going to steal your idea, because most people honestly won't do the execution. So just start executing, start building, and that's kind of super important. I'm glad at that. Have no scam. I think if there's one message I hope you take away from today, it's like you have to cringe maximize in all things in life. This idea of like have you no shame or no scam is like what's holding people back from greatness, in my opinion. Like those like, I don't know, singers who became absolute like rock star celebrities, they probably had years of being like shitty pub singers where everyone booed them and they got like, you know, $2 in tips and they couldn't get a break. Maybe their voice would break, and you could look back like, oh, that's so embarrassing, you know. Or people founders who are going cold call, people are like, oh, that's so embarrassing. That's excellent. That means you're actually doing the thing. If you put yourself out there, you're exposing yourself to being ridiculed or, you know, made fun of or whatever, it means you're actually doing the thing. If you're not feeling embarrassed, then like that's lame. You're not doing the thing, you know. So have no shame, cringe maximize, put yourself out there. Like that's how you be better. Otherwise, just sitting at home, like being a watcher, not a doer. So be a doer and cringe maximize. God, my handwriting is so bad. Literally can't read that point, so I'm just going to go to the next one. The third thing I wrote here is thing I did right was making hard decisions fast. Whew. Analysis paralysis can definitely destroy some businesses. I think that in a world where we're overwhelmed with information, and especially you don't know what the right thing is to do, and you can ask people for advice, and you can conflicting advice, and you can watch startup videos, and it can get conflicting advice. No one will ever know the full context more than you know, and you'll never be fully informed ever. You won't know every single like outcome or variable, but like you just gotta make a decision and go with it. You know, you can adjust as you go, but you can't like be like, what's the next step? Just like go for it. An example of this is during COVID. We had been going for about 18 months and then COVID hit. And that was really bad because like universities shut down, students went home. And it was just like, oh my God, we have to have a business. You know, is this even like possible? We had investors pulling out like at like the last second, literally at the 11th hour, and we've been banking on that money coming in. So we've been spending on that. Sorry, my tea's getting cold here. We had, yeah, I mean, it was just, yeah, I mean, like it was like a lot of things went. I think now a lot of things went really wrong really quickly. I mean, that was terrifying. You know, when COVID first hit, and and still came on the TV, and it was like, there's this virus that's come out. Everyone's like, oh my gosh! I remember I had to fly to Earl Tambo and sitting at usually the slow lounge at Earl Tambo, like it's popping off. Like that's where like things go down. The place is great, and everyone's sitting there just like grim faces. That was not a good vibe, and it was scary. And what became obvious really quickly was that our current business model wasn't going to work. Like if we'd stuck with that, it wasn't going to work. And we had to pivot our business model. And to pivot the business model, we then had to pivot the product, which means we then had to use considerable dev resources to change a new model, but we couldn't test it until our next intake cycle, that September. And we had just enough runway to get to that point. And it was just like, oh shit, do we stick with saying it's working so far, but the conditions, the environment conditions have changed drastically. I used to say it was like an asteroid hit the earth, and before being a dinosaur was awesome, but now being like, I don't know, a small marsupial was awesome. Like the conditions had changed. We had to evolve, or do we kind of stick it out and hope? Because you remember, like, the president was like, oh, it's just 2 weeks of lockdown, like 6 weeks of lockdown. And so the thing is like, oh, we just wait 6 weeks back to normal again. So you don't know. That's a very extreme example. Sometimes it's not as extreme as that, but like you won't have all the information. You don't know what the conditions are, but you can't have to be like, things are not working. It seems like this path leads to a very bad place for the business. Like we got to make a call. And in a sense, who knows? I mean, like if the president hadn't ended the lockdown in 2021, it might have been a different story. Like if we'd had like a couple of developers actually left during COVID, which sucked. But if they hadn't left, we wouldn't have had that financial burden of paying them. And that would have also been like the death ticket for the company. So you don't actually ever know what's coming down the road, but you have to use information that you have in that moment to make a decision and go for it. If we had dilly-dallied for another month, it's another month of runway gone. And then you're another month closer to death. Like often I think a big part of just succeeding as a company is like surviving your own stupidity for long enough to make it, and because eventually like you will get it right if you just like stop screwing up. And you're going to screw up because it's really hard building companies and you just make mistakes along the way. But you can just survive your own screw ups for long enough, you'll get it right, and it kind of you'll escape that valley of death into like what hopefully becomes your hockey stick trajectory growth. But also, another thing with kind of making hard decisions fast is hiring and firing. This is very scary. Like one of the most, probably actually the most important thing about being a founder and definitely a CEO is that you're the custodian of your employees' careers and their livelihoods. And this is a massive responsibility. These are people's lives. This is how they pay their rent. This is how they buy food. If they've got like a family, it's a huge responsibility. That's probably what stressed me out the most, I think, during COVID. Like I'd never really been an anxious person, but like that weighing on your shoulders, like you screw it up. These are people's lives. They're depending on you to get it right. So I think that hiring and firing is a massive, massive decision. Obviously, for the business, very important. For people's lives, it's very, very important. So yeah. Yeah, you're balancing so many forces by being the CEO, because obviously on the one hand you have your shareholders and your investors that are demanding returns, and then of course you have your customers that you serve, and then of course you have your team, you have like their lives and their careers and what you want to build with them. So you have to make sure that you're like taking care of all of those. But again, as CEO, it's like these: how do you develop your team to get them to the best possible person they can be? But on the other hand, if you have someone on your team who's not fitting in, who isn't adding, it's just kind of, I don't want to say bad apple because that's not right. It's often, if someone's underperforming at work, I'd say it's 80% of the time it's because you're a bad manager, and then 20% of the time because it's just the wrong person for the role. So if someone's underperforming, most of the time you check your own managerial skills and be like, are they in the right place? Am I giving them everything to succeed? Have I made them feel supported? All those things. If you do all of that and you objectively think you're being a great manager, then it's time to kind of be like, look, you're not in the right company or you're not in the right role. And then you need to be, again, decisive with making that kind of happen. That's nothing on making hard decisions fast. Cutting budgets. This is another tough one. Spending money is really fun in a business because often you'll see results. You spend like $1 million on marketing and you get like so many new customers. You're like, this is awesome. Or hiring lots of people can be really fun. Or getting a cool new office is like really nice because the whole team's really happy and you have like a cool ping pong table and you take them out for beers. It's like, it's really easy to spend money. Um, Cutting budgets and being so fastidious with your budgeting is so critical. And like when the market conditions changed for us during COVID, and then again about a year ago, like it's a really weird phase that the venture capital world's in right now. It's definitely self-correcting. Valuations are being slashed. People are struggling to raise. Even funds themselves can't raise from LPs. So being extremely fastidious about like your budgeting is critical. If you can see trouble, a bit of a long-term view, if you can see trouble on the horizon, you got to move fast and you got to cut your budget like ASAP. And like, it's a hard decision, but you got to just do that. Like what is have to have for the business, what is like nice that you have, and what is just like fluff. And you just got to cut that. And another thing that I like about this is I've taken this thinking into my government work. So like for NYDA, we've got a budget of about R1 billion. And with government money, because it's so much money, I mean, R1 billion, you look at some of the bigger businesses in South Africa, isn't that much, but it's R1 billion of taxpayer funding. This is taxpayer money. South Africa's not a big tax base. So you're looking at this, and with this cash, it's kind of like, okay, so it's easy just to kind of like assign 200 million rand budget here. But actually, when you kind of do the startup thinking of like being super critical with every single rand you spend, it is such a great way of thinking. It's taking to every part, whatever business you're in, whatever board you're on, if it's government work, it's private sector, whatever it is, even your own personal life, to really think about like being quite decisive with that budgeting, just in terms of making hard decisions fast. Pulling out of bad markets is another thing that I think I've done right. It's nice to want to be everywhere. The biggest, be in every single market, but sometimes some markets don't make sense. So for us, we wanted to be in every single university town in South Africa. Some university towns just don't make sense. Rentals were too low. There wasn't enough private housing. The universities were quite hostile, don't want to work with us, perhaps in some in towns. So I think being quite clear about which markets to go into hard and what to pull out of. And it can feel like, if you've spent, let's say, a lot of money in a particular market and you pull out of that, it can feel like, oh, we've ripped money and let's keep going. That's like the sunk cost fallacy. If you're going to keep plowing money into a black hole, it's going nowhere. You should cut your losses and move on. And then, this is another very hard decision that was the right thing to do, is ending our partnership with student.com. We had an amazing partnership with a huge global player. And this is all actually in my book. So I'm going to give a little shout out to my book, but it's all like, I think it's the second last chapter when I talk about this, but we had this amazing partnership. It gave us a low leverage, but it got to a point where the partnership was more detrimental to the business than beneficial. And it became more of a vanity metric than actually being productive for the business. And so even though I kept, dilly-dallying on that, eventually when we ended the partnership, it was the right thing to do. All right, so I can go on to the things I did wrong now. Or does anyone have any questions at this point, or no, save it till the end about things I did wrong? Or things I did right, sorry. Okay, cool. Let me keep going then.
Sorry, I was just looking for my hand there. Hey.
No stress.
When you were talking about like lack of focus and too much optimism, you come off as a person with like a lot of natural energy. So I suppose that could be something that might be very against what you're saying. But is this something you're going to explore now with what you did wrong?
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay.
exactly what I was going to do
Let me
next. Yeah.
not jump the gun on that then. Then I'll let you continue. Let me listen now.
Cool. Okay, let me dive into that. Things I did wrong. So thank you for that opening. That was actually, Henry, that was brilliant. So it tied to the next part seamlessly. Things I did wrong. And yes, the biggest one was the lack of focus. Absolutely. That is my biggest weakness. And that's also, luckily enough, Greg's strength is absolute focus. So again, it's having that co-founder thing where someone like kind of, you work the complementary skill set. But yeah, even from when I was at school, this is like my school report card to say lack of focus. Okay, so oh, there's so many things I wrote down here when I started writing. There's just so many examples of where I screwed up. So in a product point of view, lack of focus came as too many features. When you raise funding or if you start making a lot of money, you hire a lot of developers, you've got a tech-based product, and you just want to build like a bunch of cool features because you think, oh, this is cool. And you sit around with your team and you're riffing off ideas and you're looking at the cool products. You're like, we should add this and this and this and this and this. And maybe you kind of lose focus what your business is actually about. If you can't say in like a sentence or a few words what your company does, then it's like, how do consumers understand that? If they're like, yeah, this business is kind of that, but also kind of that, and also kind of that. You're not like the best in the business. Someone can say, if you want student housing, go to Digs Connect. Someone can say that, like, if you think of businesses, like if you want running shoes, you go to Nike. If you want, like, you just want to be like so obviously almost like the like Kleenex is tissues, like people see your brand as like the thing. And that focus is so important. When we start adding all these like features because they all felt cool, like it diluted the brand a bit, I think. By having too many features that actually weren't helpful. Another thing is that like everything adds so much more complexity than you think. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to add this thing. Oh, bloody nice sunset behind me. Lack of focus. It's not just like adding this one thing where you just like, oh, I'm going to add this new feature. Like for it to integrate seamlessly, to have like a beautiful customer experience, a beautiful customer journey where it's like you're using a feature or a product or a service and it's just like, it almost intuits what you want. That's a really good experience. At the right time, you're getting a little SMS or an email, someone's calling you, it's offering something that you just want at that moment. That is like a beautiful 10-star experience. But if you're just like, slapping on features here and there, not thinking through the entire customer journey of how they're going to engage with that, it then becomes sloppy. It doesn't become this beautiful, tight experience for a user. It becomes like this is kind of random. Like, why do I want this feature? Like, what is it? What? It's confusing. It's not beautiful, and like it's like a jarring thing. You don't want your customers to feel like it's jarring. You want to feel like almost like someone's holding their hand. Like when you see like really nice hotels and they're like bloody 10-star hotels and like things you didn't even know you wanted, they're just kind of there. They just kind of do it for you. Or like when you go to a great restaurant and like the waiters just like they just know when you're hungry. They know when you're thirsty. They know when to leave you alone. It's like that kind of like intuiting what someone wants. That's a beautiful user experience. And when you're adding too many features, you lose that. It becomes too complex. Like there's too many things can go wrong. There's too many ways that bugs can creep in, So is the resource expenditure on those extra issues worth the way it could go wrong and worth how it could potentially bring in more revenue or more customer satisfaction? If you really ask yourself that, 9 times out of 10, I would say it's not worth it. And you're just kind of doing it because it's like exciting and alluring, but doesn't actually keep to the laser focus of your business. So that's in too many features. Lack of focus also was globally expanding into more countries and cities before we were ready. Growth is exciting, spending money is exciting, but like again, it's like you have to always make sure you're maintaining a degree of excellence and exceptionalism. So like if you're doing one thing in one place, you can be like often you'll see this like restaurants, like a restaurant will work really well in like a particular place. Maybe it's the right corner, it's the right team, it's right whatever. But you'll go to a restaurant and just like it's perfect. The food's perfect, the vibes are perfect, it's amazing. And the restaurant will be like, oh, we're doing so well. Let's open it in a new city or a new place, and it just bombs. Or they'll be like, oh, let's expand to be like double the size, and it just bombs. They've lost that thing. So it's like I think the same with like having a product or business or service. If something's working really, really well, there's like this magic to it, right? And as soon as you start adding new places, again, it's the complexity you have with features. It's like there's so much complexity to every single market you're going to enter. You have to balance the marketplace. You have to understand the customers there. It's always different. If you're not being like exceptional about that, like 110% deeply understanding that, you're going to have a slightly shittier experience for your users, and then it's going to bomb a bit. Like it's always obviously really like, and this is like almost do what I said of just start, because you kind of also want to like go for it. But like, I think just, yeah, it really is a contextual thing to know when you actually are ready. Like, do you have the resources to make sure that you're properly going to do a new market or a new, city or a new whatever it is? Like, can you actually make sure you give it the focus and attention resource it deserves? I think we expanded too fast in a lot of the cities, to be honest. That's one mistake that I think we made. And the third one was my personal life. Lack of focus. I took too many things on, and this is one of the biggest life lessons I've ever learned, I think. Richard Branson has this thing where he's like, opportunities are like, the buses in London. They come around every 2 minutes, except for when it's raining. Then it comes on like every half an hour. You stay in the rain. But generally, like, opportunities that come out all the time. And the more work you do and the more your profile kind of rises and becomes public, the more people are going to approach you with ideas. And maybe it's board seats, maybe it's projects, maybe it's collaboration, maybe it's new cities, maybe it's whatever it is. Like, you're going to get inundated with opportunities. And if you've been like hustling and struggling your whole life to get there, which you're going to have as a founder, suddenly it'd be like when you start, you say yes to everything. So you're just desperate. You're just like, oh my God, we have nothing. I say yes, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to say yes. And you should. But at some point, it becomes important to start saying no. And I don't think I've learned that even now to this day. I think I'm still trying to learn that. Like, I'm just thinking, like, even this week, I said yes to something tomorrow that I probably shouldn't have, because now I feel like it's just too much, in terms of like commitments, me being able to deliver excellence on that. When I got appointed to the board of the NYDA, National Development Agency, was literally that same month I got appointed to the board of the NYDA. We expanded globally. I was told I had to move to London, and then I was given a book deal by NB Publishers. And I was like, yes, I can manage this. I'd also just come off the back of a really bad burnout. It was like the end of COVID, like bad. Like my health was like, I don't know how much I should share here. Like, I don't have TMI situation. I'm kind of open book, but like, it was, my health took a real hit from that. It's, you're just like exhausted. Oh, so with all of that, and then in a month to have all this thing happen, I was like, yeah, 100%, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna agree to all. I can do it. I can manage it. I'm quite an energetic person, and I said yes to all of it. And I think you can do one thing exceptionally. I think you do two things kind of well, but when you start adding on 3 or more things, you just become dreadful. I think the exception to this may be someone like Elon Musk, who's obviously started 6 companies, but I think he's an exception in almost everything. But other than that, as soon as you start doing too many things, you're going to bomb at them. And then people are going to start associating with someone who is distractible, who doesn't deliver excellent work, who is just mediocre. And then your reputation becomes someone who's mediocre and not someone who's exceptional. And then you've just, all the benefits of having those people approach you kind of lost. That was definitely a big mistake, because on top of that, even if you think like, oh, I'm the hardest working person ever, like, I'm never gonna stop working. I work all day, I work all night, I work weekends. No. It's this big, like, cool thing that founders always say. And I say it all the time. I was like, I work all the time. Like, that is terrible, I think, to be like that. Like, I really regret being, I spent my whole 20s doing that, and I think that was terrible. I think that to be like, you want to build for the long term. You want to be building, I think if you like building companies, like, your whole life. And if you burn yourself out and you hate it so much because you've destroyed your like serotonin, you just like by 30, you're just like, I'm done, which is kind of how I felt for a while. Then like, what's the point? I think being human is wonderful. It's like, there's so much joy, and being human means spending time with your family, spending time with your friends, sleeping, taking care of your health, doing sports, travel, like, and actually come back to this later. But I said that also, someone said this thing to me once where, Silicon Valley thing was move fast and break things. Like, when I started shifting my mindset around like having work-life balance and making sure that my sleep was my priority, my health my priority, my friends and family kind of stuff, but I wanted to build long-term, then my thing became move slow and build things instead of like move fast and break things. And I always really enjoyed that. It's something I've moved. So it doesn't sound as like cool and kick-ass, but I still think I'm pretty cool and kick-ass, even though I like the idea of, move slow, build things. But when you take all that into account, if you're taking it, I was doing Dixon NYDA, book, moving, global expansion, plus personal life, plus all those things, it was too much. It was way too much. And something's got to give. Your health is going to go, your relationships are going to go, your work is going to drop the ball. Like, I'll be someone like, kind of like, jumping off a flight in a new country every like 2 days, sitting in a taxi on my way to a meeting, got a meeting on my laptop, meeting on my phone, and everyone's getting like 10% of my life. My friends, I just completely abandoned them. Like my weight was like going up and down because I just didn't have time to work out or eat properly. Like it's just not a good vibe. And you can do everything, but like after each other, you know, life is long. There's time to do it all. So that lack of focus was a big lesson. And two was the near delusional sense of optimism. I think that being optimistic is critical. I think optimistic people are the best people, 100%. I think you have to be optimistic to even have the idea it's worth starting. I think that being happy is super important. I think that knowing the future is worth fighting for and being excited about being happy is like, it's my number one thing that I look for in people that I want to be friends with and work with is like optimism. I think it's so important. That being said, being realistic is not being negative. And I would say that while everyone in my life is optimistic, they're also way more realistic than me. Because I know when I work with people that are the same level of like delusionally optimistic as me, like it's just disaster, you know, like because sometimes you actually have to step back and you have to look before you leave and you have to actually be like, look, we've got 2 days of runway, we can't do this, or like we will actually die if we do that, or like sometimes you need that. So like my best friends and my dad is very, very important to me, and Greg also, like realistic people. Even my personal life, I know when I dated guys that were very similar to me, it was a disaster. And when I spend time with people that are a lot more like grounded, it works a lot better. So I think it's critical to be optimistic. I think it's critical to like be excited about things and to believe it's going to work and to have a bit of a, you know, a cowboy attitude, be like, we're going to just go for it, we're going to do it. But just from my own experience, when I think about things I did wrong, it was not being more realistic about some things. But that being said, would I change it for myself? Probably not. If anything, at least for the stories. Like, yeah, probably not. As long as a caveat, as long as you're surrounded by people who are realistic. Or if you're the realist, working with people that are extremely optimistic. Because I think it's optimists that definitely make things happen in the world. But it's realists that make sure things don't die in the world. So it's that combination is nice. And the last thing I have, yeah, oh, this is a really bad one. Of things, oh, I've got 10 minutes left, so I'll ask questions. The last thing I wrote here is not being more inclusive of other people's ideas and opinions. Oh, that's the bad one. So, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that is so true. I think everyone knows that. Like, I think it can be exciting and exhilarating to be like, I'm on my mission. No one's going to stop me. Like, I'm going to go for it. I don't have to wait to ask opinions, just run, you know, the whole dictator thing. And it is really exciting. But like, things are never smooth sailing. You can hit the first road bump, roadblock. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to get tired. You're going to get ill one day. You're going to whatever. If you're alone or you've like isolated yourself, then it's just really hard to bounce back. It's really hard to keep going. Like, you need to have that team effort. You need to be with people. But people have to feel invested. If you don't feel invested in like something, like, why would you care? Yeah, you can be a good person and be like, I care because objectively I care, but like that's not human nature. Like this is why capitalism, in my opinion, I think I've seen this MBA class, and I assume we're all proponents of capitalism. But why I think it always works is because it works with human nature, and humans need incentives. Humans have to feel invested in order to really plow into like, you know, their resources into that. Someone's time, someone's effort, someone's mental capacity, someone's all these things. Like they're going to give you that in terms of a business or whatever it is. Like, what is their return? And that's just human nature, in my opinion, at least. So you have to let people invested, and that means like their ideas matter. And even if you can say, if you firmly believe it's wrong, sometimes you have to let the team learn that themselves, or like do it, because maybe you are wrong, maybe it actually does work, maybe it is wrong and they made a mistake. But if you don't let people be invested and have their ideas, pursue those ideas, and like, you know, dilute your own vision with other people's like visions, then like it's just, yeah, it's quite what's the word when you kind of like put out a bit, what's that word, like de-energizing. You just put out, you know, when you kind of like have an idea and you put it forward, it keeps getting shut down and your idea is not being taken up and you can't work on that. I think you just start feeling a bit maybe disinvested in that. So you have to invest in the team. So I think that was a big mistake, is kind of being so set on my vision and not slowing down enough to kind of let other people like add to that or change it or be more flexible around that or run other people's ideas is definitely a huge mistake that I made. What you want to do as a founder is you want to hire people that are way more talented than you, way more smart than you, way more equipped than you, like, and you want to get out of their way and you want to let them shine, like, and you have to just like bite back your own ego, bite your tongue, bite back your own ego, like, and let others lead, you know, let them run with it, let them be talented, let them be exceptional. And that was definitely something that I did wrong a lot in the past. And yeah, that sums up my talk and my ideas. I was exactly 10 minutes. Sorry, to be inclusive, I spoke for 50 minutes and then left you guys 10 minutes for questions. Oh my God, when will I learn? But that sums me up. So
perfect.
yeah, questions, comments, thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexandria. It's really quite it just feels so great to hear your learnings and your experiences from your startup journey, and also for these to be, I guess, sentiments that have been shared through our strategic entrepreneurship course as well. It's nice to hear that the sentiments are echoed, but also just hearing it from someone who's been through it themselves. I think it really just puts a greater perspective on it and something that it's a bit more, it's easy to take to heart, I think. So thank you so much for your candidness. I do have a question, but I think as the moderator, I don't know, let me just open it up to everyone else. Please, if you've got a question, raise your hand. I'll also monitor the chat and see if there's anything in there. Ulrich.
Yeah, so great to meet you, Alexandria. Yeah, my question is, there's a very interesting Harvard paper about the cycles of growing companies, and there's the different phases. There's the go-go phase, there's the adolescent phase, there's the stable phase, and each phase change either, and look, I take my hat off to founders. I think you're extremely brave. I would never be a founder. I accept that's not a role I'll ever play. I'll happily work for founders, but I'm never going to be the founder myself, because I think it takes a special kind of person to become a founder. But what I'm saying with these phases, each time, either the company fails or the founder is booted out or through a hostile takeover by shareholders, or the founder reinvents themselves for the next phase of the company. I just want to know, how did you find that you had to reinvent yourselves as you went from South Africa to global, to being an author, to all these things? How did you adjust to to continue being mainstream in the company?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. I think the one in terms of my bio, my introduction that I'll share, I don't know if Erin has done any reading on me before this and knows about the latest updates of my life. But I actually stepped down as CEO a few weeks ago, after 6 years of this. And very much in line with your question, actually, about why that happened, is that it got to a point where I was no longer the best fit for that role where the company was at. So I think as the company changed, and is going to keep changing, it became clear that where my sort of zone of genius is and what the company needed wasn't the best possible alignment. Which again is like, it's one of those things, making hard decisions fast, and being very aware of your strengths and weaknesses. So I think that, yeah, I think it depends on the person. I think it's very contextual, and the environment depends on how the change is happening. You get some founders that stick with the company throughout its entire journey. It changes as it goes. I mean, look at Zuckerberg. He started very young and he keeps changing. I don't know, the latest version of Zuck that we're seeing, I actually like the most. I think he's super cool at the moment. Or you get someone like Steve Jobs, who changed also, actually maybe changed that much throughout the journey, but it's definitely boosted out, when everyone got sick of him, and then brought him in again when they realized they actually needed him for that. So I think in some cases, the founder is always perfect for it. In some cases, they need to change as they go. Some cases they go out and come in again. I think it depends. It depends on the person, depends on the environmental context, on what's going on in their personal lives. Sometimes people have to leave because family member's really sick, or they get really ill, or they get appointed to a government board, or whatever it is. So I think you just have to be very, I think it's contextual. It depends also on the business, what's better for the business at that point. That's probably actually the most important question, not about the founder, it's about the business, because you're representing shareholders and clients and customers. It's bigger than you, which is scary, because like when you start, obviously it's all you have, like it is you, it's your thing. It feels like having a baby. It's like, this is mine, I made it. It's like, that scene in School of Rock where there's that song, it's like, the band is mine. It's like kind of like that. Great song. It kind of feels like that, but it becomes bigger than just you, which is beautiful. And that's when actually, like, it's more than just you. You create this thing, and they're like having a child, it grows up and goes away. It's like, it's bigger than just you now. You have to let it go. So yeah, it depends. Is the unsatisfying answer I have to give to this.
I think it's a great answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Ulrich. Henry, your hand's up.
Hey, okay, I figured out how to do the hands up thing. Alexandra, thank you very much for the entire chat. But I'm actually going to go back to where I was going to ask midway through about like the lack of focus and too much optimism. Because like you exude so much energy, you've got the natural confidence, we've known the successes that you've brought about. But what I'm keen to know is like, as you've developed on this journey, especially as quite a young entrepreneur and young successful person, if that's like a thing you can call yourself,
I'll take it.
or have you developed with any kind of insecurities that you've had, or perhaps had to like overcome, or that you're still working on, if that's not too much TMI?
No, God, I mean, I love sharing. I'm all about TMI. I think, I was like, I mean, I'm a human. Of course, we're insecurities. Everyone's got insecurities. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about humans, is that the commonality of our suffering sometimes. Like we're all humans, are all beautifully homogenous. We're all the same, and that's why I think like wars and everything's so stupid. Everyone's like us versus them, or this idea, that idea. Everyone wants the same things, and everyone's scared of the same things. Like if you're in New York or Kinshasa, like everyone wants to fall in love and be happy and do meaningful work and feel safe and live in a beautiful place. Everyone wants that, and everyone has the same insecurities also, and that's, I think, should make us feel close to each other. I was incredibly insecure, and I had definitely struggled a lot with self-worth, especially in my 20s, and I underperformed a lot. Like at school, I was a terrible student. I was always in attention. I was scraping through. University, underperformed. I would like, literally, I was like 50%. All I wanted to see was 50%. Do you guys still use Vula at UCT? When I was there, you use Vula to your marks. If I saw 50, I was like, oh, where am I, bro? Yeah, and I underperformed the whole way through. And like, wow, like it's funny now, I guess it does affect your self-worth, where you feel like you just kind of shit at everything. I definitely felt like that. I definitely didn't know what I was going to do with my life. But funny enough, I think it's actually like, by just getting started and doing the thing, you start feeling better straight away. You're like, I can do this actually, I can do this thing. I can build an MVP, whatever that is. I can get my first customer. I can do this thing. I can hire someone and be, a good CEO. Like one of the things I did really right, I think, is during COVID, which was really scary. I think I was a really good CEO then. I think sometimes I've been a shit CEO, but that was an example, I think, when I was really good. And you just have to do it, and by doing it, like you build a business and like it builds you back in a way. It's the same with working out. I remember like I went through a phase where I was like super unfit. And it's just like, how can you ever get to that level where you can like, run a marathon or do a triathlon or whatever? Just by like after your first run, you feel so much better. And then you have a second one, your third one, after like you're lifting your first couple of weights. And so I think it's like, you can't, like, as much meditation is obviously super important, and thinking about things is important, and like therapy is all very important. I'm a huge proponent of all those things. But like you can't, I think maybe like will yourself to being a better person. You have to put in the work. And the work, if it's working out or if it's building the thing or like whatever, like I think that I got a lot of self-worth just from doing stuff. Obviously, yeah, talking about its importance and all that, your friends are important and all that. But like personally, for me, I definitely felt like I became more confident, and I started liking myself a hell of a lot more when I started doing things and not just like talking about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Henry. Caitlin?
I just have a quick question, Alexandria. So now that you've mentioned that you've stepped down as CEO, I'm interested to know what does the future hold? What's the next move for you?
I think I will thank you for that question. I think I will definitely just be eating what's on my plate for now. Like I'm still in the middle of my government term of office as a director of the NYDA, and that alone is a full-time job. I remember when I first got appointed, I was like, oh, it's a board seat, so it'll be 4 meetings a year. And when you see the scope of work that is neat, I mean, it's that was unemployment rate just as one of the things, especially youth unemployment we can start with, and that's just one of the millions of things that fall in our jurisdiction. Like it should be more than a full-time job. I wanted to give it every second of my life when I started doing the work and realizing what a disproportionately big impact I could have by being on the ground. It's only saying board meetings and read reports and sign off on budgets and all that kind of stuff. But when I actually went to go visit constituencies and be with people and give support, like disproportionately large returns for human beings. So I've been doing, that's why I am giving that like almost my all at the moment, to finish that. So that term ends in November. Also just wrote a book, and that got published in February, and I've done no other work on it since then, just because it's been too busy other things. But I want to like give that a lot of airtime. I am very grateful for my publishers for giving me a book deal, even though I hadn't written anything yet. And I was unpublished author, so they gave me a book deal out of nowhere. And I feel like I owe it to them to really like put some effort into that. So I'm doing a book tour. That's actually at the moment in May. So I'm speaking at exclusive books at different book events. I'm doing the Frontier Literary Festival, Kingsmead Book Fair. Yeah, a bunch of different road shows, book signings, speaking at different universities and schools. So I'm going to be doing that slot. I have a potential deal. Yeah, just a lot of deals just around that to make that work. My book is currently, if you drive through Cape Town City Centre and on the Media 24 building, they have a big screen, and my book gets flashed on that every now and again, which is pretty cool for like a New York Times Square thing. I took a photo yesterday. So that, I mean, finishing that, I'm doing training for a triathlon. So I'm doing a triathlon in June. Busy. I just love my sports in general. So I'm sleeping a lot at the moment, which is really nice after the last 6 years. Sleeping a lot, seeing a lot of my friends, which is really nice. Being just a really good friend at the moment. Yeah, I'm busy launching a massive program in June for government. Obviously now it's the election coming up, so I'm doing a lot of work. Also, I ran a program called 1 Million for Democracy for the last 8 months, I think it's since September last year. And the goal was to get 1 million young South Africans who hadn't registered to vote. And this included helping them get their ID documents, going to the polling station, education on voting. So we wrapped that project 1 month ago. And by the time we wrapped it, we had 1.6 million young people registered to vote. So we overshot our goal, which is really awesome. So now it's about the next month, it's just civic education, getting people to the polls, getting them voting. And in June, we launched this new program for youth in sports. So celebrating South African sports. Careers in sports, using sports as a coping mechanism, sports for mental wellness. So we just got given, I think it's about 50 million rand budgets to get that up and running. Yeah, so at least until November, I'm going to be focusing on my government term, on my book, and I've got a couple ideas I've got for after that. Yeah, I'm chatting to some people. I'm spending some time in the US actually in August, in Texas. I got some meetings there. Got a couple ideas. And of course, still I am Digs Connect's biggest individual shareholder and a director on the board. And I'm doing that kind of support Greg in his role now as CEO and support the company, and every now and again kind of get called in to do everything I can. So yeah.
Awesome. It sounds super exciting. Lots to look forward to, especially Texas. It sounds very secretive. But fun. I know that we are slightly over, but I did actually want to have a quick question about the VC component and Faris Ventures.
Yes.
So I hope it's okay that I ask, and if there are other questions, I guess we'll see. But the question is really, what led you to create a VC fund? Was it being on the other side, beforehand with Digs Connect, and then wanting to, be on the funding side? So what was your kind of motivation for creating that? And then also health tech. What trends are you seeing for the future, and what are you wanting to fund?
Oh gosh, so much to talk about there. I feel like a whole session just on venture capital. Yeah, the movement and allocation of resources is almost like the story of civilization, like humanity. It's like, how do we move resources around collectively towards where it needs to go to like propel civilizations? So venture capital is like a little microcosm of this. So it's really exciting. I think starting with why I started, how I started. I actually didn't plan it again, and I should have said I moved. Some of my connections stable. Oh, you guys can still hear me. I met someone in London who is a serial entrepreneur and founder. It was crazy when you start interacting with like global founders. It's like absolutely mad because there's just so much access to capital internationally. Just the things people are building is insane. And we were chatting, and I just started talking about. I think it's about South Africa and how much I love South Africa, how much I love Africa, and I get so frustrated about the perception that more developed nations have about Africa. It's not getting enough resources. It's not getting enough funding. It's overlooked as a market. It is like, and every time I come back to South Africa after traveling abroad, I feel this joy. Like it is, this place is just like South Africa is incredible. It is literally genuinely the best country in the world. It is like amazing. And every time I come back here, I realize how much we take it for granted. This place is incredible. And the more people come here, the more they see how amazing it is. I know, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like in January and February, like the language, the national language of Cape Town becomes like German, right? With the number of Europeans that are coming in here. Like, and the more they come, the more everyone's like, this place is amazing. And like, foreigners coming in and they're bringing their capital and they're bringing their resources and investing here, and it is amazing. And so I'm always like, how do we get more people here? How do we get like business coming here and tourists coming here and people coming here and just being excited about this and funding businesses and changing this perception that South Africa and Africa isn't like, not only in terms of like, giving resources for social entrepreneurship, which is important, don't get me wrong, but like as a place to get really good solid returns as like a high revenue market in South Africa and across Africa. And the more I talk about this, the more I'm like, I was speaking a lot about this to my friend in London, and he said, you should start a fund. I'm like, I can't start a fund. It's same like with the idea of starting like a business. I was like, I can't start a fund. Like that's crazy. I don't know what to do. He was like, what do you mean? Just like start a fund. So that's kind of basically how it happened with a friend of mine in London who talked me into it. And again, it's one of those things where you kind of broaden serendipity. I'd spoken about it. He was very well connected in the space, and he had all the connections I kind of needed to speak to people, to learn about it, to engage. Like it was just the right partnership, really. Kind of get it off the ground. And the vision also was something I really believed in. Now that I have more time, definitely want to plow more into. The health tech focus started because he was a health tech founder, to be honest, again. So that kind of it started, but the more I started doing research into that, obviously I have a prop tech background, but the more I started research into that, the more I realized that I really, really liked it. And especially now that, I turned 31 this year. And the older I get, the more focus I put on my health. Definitely, the more I've gone into my sports. I want to say my nutrition, but I still eat far too much chocolate. That one's still pending, the nutrition part. Very partial to a glass of Chardonnay. But a big thing also that happened to me this year, which I actually haven't shared, I haven't not shared it publicly, but I haven't like made it explicitly shared it publicly, which I actually want to run op-ed about it. Is I did egg freezing this year in January, which was a crazy experience actually. And so I want to write an op-ed about that whole experience. That was insane. And it's exciting. Whenever I speak to women, everyone's really interested in it, either wants to do it or has done it. Obviously depending on their own context, but it's a huge topic. We don't really speak about it publicly. And that whole process was pretty intense, much more intense than I thought it was going to be. And obviously, when I was doing that, I started doing a lot more research into fertility. And I think that's answering your last question about trends. I think fertility is a really, really, I don't want to say exciting trend because there's pros and cons to it. Sometimes fertilities, people go through their journey for, reasons that are because they're struggling with their health. And sometimes very exciting reasons. They want to have a family and they can't, for whatever reason. But I think as couples wait longer to have children, there's just a lot of moving factors and trends that we're seeing that I think could make fertility a really exciting space in the future. And all things around child raising and child caring, I think are really exciting. You know, how do you incentivize people to have children where both birth rates are falling? What does it look like? How do you make it exciting? And not just being like, have more leave days, but how do you integrate that into people's lives? How do you make sure that women are feeling extremely supported so that they don't feel like motherhood is like the nail in the coffin of their lives? I think that from what I understand, I'm not a mother yet, is that it is, if not they're one of the most fulfilling aspects of life, but it's not your whole life. And I think it shouldn't be your whole life as a woman, you know? So how do you make sure that it doesn't become, how do you make sure that basically motherhood is incentivized also in a modern world? And so that I find really interesting around health tech. It's something I want to explore.
Awesome. Super exciting. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are a few comments in the chat about that. Love the chat. Some people needed to drop off.
So
And
open up the chat.
Portia's last comment that resonates with me so much. Alexandria, thank you so much. Very interesting for sure. Yeah, we are over time. I think just a very brief thank you from my side for sharing your insights. And like I said earlier, for being so candid. It's appreciated. And yeah, we're really thankful for your time. How can we connect with you? If anyone does want to connect with you after this chat, is LinkedIn the best way, or do you have an email you could perhaps pop in the chat? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I have every type of social media. I love sharing my life.
Cool.
So literally whatever you're more comfortable with. I mean, everything. I have LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, Spotify, blog. I blog all the time. Goodreads, right? Goodreads
Love
is like
it.
the best social media platform, I promise you.
It's true.
Email works. To be honest, I'm terrible at email. Like I hardly ever reply, and everyone gets really upset with me.
Okay.
But
Use the other socials then.
Yeah, socials I'm really good at, definitely.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Love it. You'll be seeing definitely a few invites from the MBA cohorts of UCT following this meeting. But yeah, thank you everyone else for joining this session. Caitlin, I don't know if you want to end off or if we're all good. Thumbs up.
Just wanted to say a final thank you, Alexandra. Really interesting session, really great discussion. I think, you know, you have been very candid with it's not often that somebody's willing to put their hand up and say, these are some of the things that I messed up. These are some of the things that I know I can see now I did wrong. And I think it's really refreshing to hear that as well. So thank you so much from the GSB side.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh, I feel extremely grateful to have this everyone's time. So thank you.
Love it.
And have a lovely evening, everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
All right.